Hi, how's everyone doing out there? I am so glad to be here on a Saturday. I'm coming to you live today from the studio. This is the diabetes class series called Sugar Busters. As you know, there's a 7-part series, and every week we do one of the segments, and then it repeats every month. And so I'm so glad to have you tune in today. This is going to be segment number 1 for this month, which is what you need to know about diabetes. So in this section, we're going to hopefully answer some of your questions about what is diabetes, what is prediabetes, and the things you need to know in order to get your diabetes under better control. What things for you to know to get your blood sugar to the target numbers that they need to be at. And the reason why we're trying to get your blood sugar to the goal numbers that we have for you is that if we can do that, then you're able to decrease the long-term and short-term complications of diabetes. So it's really important that we get your numbers under control so that we can not have the complications. But unfortunately, we still have some COVID out there right now. We're coming into the winter months. If you walked outside today, I'm in Georgia. If you walked outside today, you notice that it's not as hot as it was before. So that means we're starting to cool off, which means we're going into the winter months. And this is when we worry about COVID infections going up. We worry about the flu season, influenza virus going up. And so we know from what we learned in 2020 and 2021 that people who had diabetes out of control, where your numbers were not where they needed to be, those were the ones that had more of the sequelae, more of the complications of COVID. Those were the ones who ended up in the hospital with their COVID infection. So my goal over the next 3 months is to try to get everybody who's listening and everyone that you know to listen to these videos. They're up on YouTube, they're free, so that we can all work together to get your numbers to where they need to be to decrease both the short-term and the long-term complications of diabetes. So again, this is Sugar Busters, segment 1, what you need to know about diabetes. And in this segment, we're going to be talking about just everything about diabetes, what diabetes is, why do some people have it and some people don't. So we're going to talk about diabetes just in general, and then we're going to talk about something that I think is critically important, and that is the monitoring of your blood sugar on a daily and or weekly basis so that we know what the numbers are, so that you know what the numbers are, and we can get those numbers under better control. So let's start off with what is diabetes. And the interesting thing is if you go up to the American Diabetes Association website and look at the numbers of people here in the United States that have diabetes, there are so many people getting diabetes that it's hard for the website to keep up. So in terms of how many people have it, it's about 34.2 million, probably more now. About 21 million people know that they have it. I'm worried about the 7 million people who have diabetes and don't know they have it. They don't understand what the numbers mean. They go to their doctor's office and the doctor draws blood, and then they go back to see the doctor 3 months later, and they never ask the doctor, so what was my blood test? Were there any numbers that were abnormal? We don't even have a conversation with our doctor about our blood tests. We just assume that the doctor looked at the numbers, and if there was something that he wanted to talk to me about, he talked to me about it. Well, no. So those numbers, those medical records, your progress note, what that doctor thought about your visit today, all of those belong to you. The doctors that I go to, when I leave the office, they give me a printout of what happened today. They're printed out their note, a printout of any labs that I've had done, all right? And they go through all of that with me so that I know exactly what happened at the doctor's office. So you all need to, when you walk into the office, let them know at the front desk that you want to get a copy of your progress note and your labs so that you have a copy of those. It's very important. Now, we got people who have diabetes And we're going to talk about the different types of diabetes. But there's also 88 million people, and probably now we're up in the 90s, that have prediabetes. This is what you get before you actually get the diagnosis of type 1 or type 2 diabetes. You're in this state of pre-diabetes. And we're going to talk about what that's all about and why for many of you, 88 million of you, you can actually do something about that. You can actually reverse diabetes and go back to normal glucose levels. You have the power to do that with what you eat and with how much exercise you get on a regular basis. So we're going to talk about prediabetes and exactly what you can do to reverse it, because it is reversible, which is so exciting to me. So when you talk about African Americans, and you know Healing Our Village is the name of my company, Sugar Busters is our diabetes program for Healing Our Village, you know that we focus on African Americans. That is the focus of my company. African American and Latino populations. That's what we do. And we know here in the United States that there's about 5 million or so African Americans that have diabetes, and it's probably higher than that. It's probably closer to 6-7 million. There's about 18.9% of all African Americans greater than 20 years old have diagnosed or undiagnosed diabetes. And like I said earlier, we care about the undiagnosed because you need to know what your blood sugar is, especially if diabetes is in your family. We know that diabetes is 2 times more common in African Americans. We know that if you get up into this age range of 65 to 74, so my seniors out there, we know that 25% of African American seniors have diabetes. And so what we've been doing for the last couple of months, and I'm really excited about, is we are actually going into senior citizen apartment complexes, senior communities, high-rise complexes, as well as assisted living facilities to do mini health fairs, where we not only help to figure out your COVID status, we do COVID testing, but we're also doing blood pressure checks, blood sugar checks. We're checking to see if you have prediabetes, because there's a little quiz that you can take. And so we're doing that for the last 2 months, and you would have no idea how many seniors we have screened in the last 60 days that have prediabetes, who have diabetes out of control, and have high blood pressure out of control. In fact, we've had to send a number of the seniors to the hospital. We had to call the ambulance because their numbers were so high. So my question to you is, what if we hadn't have shown up that day? What would have happened to those people? Think about that. Think about the fact that you have family members right now who have high blood pressure, who have high blood sugars, and they don't know what their number is, and you don't know what their number is. And then the next thing you know, you're getting a call that someone's, collapsed or didn't wake up or went into a coma or had to be taken to the hospital, had to be called the ambulance, had to take them to the hospital. Well, there's no reason for us to be going to a hospital for diabetes and high blood pressure out of control. That makes it's not logical, because we need to keep these numbers under control. And we're going to teach you how to do that here at Healing Our Village. We also know that if you are over 55, 1 in 4 African American women have diabetes. So I'm working with a number of women's organizations where we're trying to get them to work with Healing Our Village so that my clinical pharmacists, my diabetes educators, my dietitians can work with you and your family to get your numbers under control, and so that you know your numbers. So I'm very excited about our ability to do that now, especially with all the technology that we have out there. But I need you to spread the word, and I need you to support our efforts so that we can make this happen. So now the question is, who's at risk of getting diabetes? You probably say, well, I don't have high blood sugar. I mean, why do I care? All right, you care because you may have a parent, a brother or sister who had diabetes. And if that's the case, then that means you are genetically predisposed, potentially, to getting diabetes later in life. So that is why it's so critical for you to know what your numbers are, especially if it's in your family. We know that there are certain ethnic groups, so African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, Native Americans, Alaska Native, all of those folks have a predisposition, have a genetic predisposition to getting diabetes. So when I talked to you earlier about African Americans are 2 to 5 times more predisposed to getting diabetes, that's because of the genetics. We know that diabetes runs in families. And so if you have somebody in your family, if you're one of those ethnic groups, you need to every year keep track of what your numbers are so that if they start to inch up, then you'll know about that. So you need to know what your blood pressure numbers are and what your blood sugar numbers are. Because we know as you get older, your incidence of diabetes could potentially go up. We know that just in general, blood sugar goes up about 10 milligrams per deciliter, 10 points every year, especially in those people who are predisposed. So age is definitely a factor. Also, we know that people who are overweight or obese, they have an increased risk of getting diabetes. And that's because people who are overweight or obese tend to eat a lot of carbohydrates. And it's the sugars and the starches that are causing the problem here. So that's why we see so much diabetes, especially in predisposed people who are overweight or obese. We also know that when you got your diabetes, you probably got high blood pressure. And if you have high blood pressure, you need to probably be on high blood pressure medications because it's very difficult to control blood pressure just with diet and exercise, especially in African Americans. So most people who are African American who have hypertension, they need to be on some sort of medication to control that blood pressure. And then if you lose your 30 pounds or your 50 pounds or whatever it is you have to lose, there's a good chance that your blood pressure may go down. But we'll talk about that more, especially in our segment that we do on hypertension. We also know that people with diabetes tend to have high cholesterol levels. They have a history of heart disease because diabetes is really a heart disease. Diabetes affects the heart, the blood vessels, and all of the various chemicals in your body. All of those things make it so that a lot of people, 80% of the people that have diabetes also have heart disease. We talked a little bit about the prediabetes and inactive lifestyle. Inactive lifestyle and prediabetes go hand in hand. And listen, I've had 2 hip surgeries. I just tore my meniscus 6 months ago. I had to get surgery on my knee. I understand what it means to struggle with exercise because of just your body just can't do it anymore. So but I and everyone out there, we got to get creative about how we're going to get our steps in, how we're going to get our burn up more calories than we take in. We got to get serious about that. We also know for women, if they have polycystic ovarian disease or if you've had a high birth weight baby, a baby weighing over 9 pounds, it was potentially that you maybe had gestational diabetes. We know all of those people are at an increased risk of getting diabetes later in life. So these are the risk factors that you need to know about. Now, what exactly is diabetes? Well, it is a disease that affects the body's ability to produce insulin that comes from the pancreas or respond to the insulin that's floating around in your bloodstream from the pancreas. So either you don't make enough or you make too much actually and it just doesn't work. So we know that diabetes is a disease in which the blood glucose levels are higher than normal. They're higher than normal, all right? So when we eat food, our body breaks it down basically and provides fuel for the cells of our body. Now, this food is turned into either carbohydrates, which are your sugars and your starches, fats, or proteins. And all of that happens in the stomach. Now, we care about the sugars and the starches because those sugars and starches that you consume, the body converts those to glucose. And it is the glucose, or your blood sugar, that people usually call it that, your blood sugar, is what is absorbed quickly out of the blood into the cells of the body. And that's what your cells use as energy. That's how the cells function, is with the use of the glucose that is absorbed from the bloodstream into the cell. Now, the pancreas is basically, you can see in this picture, is a large elongated gland that's located actually behind the stomach. And this pancreas is the organ that secretes this hormone called insulin. And the pancreas secretes this insulin all day. There's what they call a basal, or just a constant amount of insulin that is secreted by the pancreas all day long. And then when you eat something, when you eat a meal or you eat a snack, especially if that meal is high in carbohydrates or starches, your pancreas sends out a surge of insulin to cover that sugar that you've just eaten, and again, to get it out of your blood into the cells. So it's the insulin that is key in the management of your blood sugar, because it is basically a key, lock and key, and we'll look at a picture in a minute here, that opens up the cells of the body to get that glucose out of the blood into the cells. So here's a cute little cartoon where you see your G's, your glucoses running through the blood glucose, and you can see that there's your cell and that there's the key where that insulin is now opened up that door to the cell to let that glucose, that blood, into the cell for energy. So many of you who have type 1 diabetes, for instance, you don't have any keys, you don't have any insulin. Whereas in type 2 diabetes, you may have a whole bunch of keys, a whole bunch of insulin, but that insulin doesn't fit the lock. The key is not there to open up that door. So type 1 diabetes, no insulin, no keys, right? Or very little. And therefore they can't open up the cells of the body. So those are the people, type 1 diabetes patients are the ones that have these super high blood sugars. Like they go into the hospital and the ambulance comes and picks them up, and their families found them on the floor and they're not responsive, and they get them to the hospital and their blood sugar is 1,000 milligrams per deciliter. Normal blood sugar is 60 to 100 milligrams per deciliter. These folks show up at a hospital with 800 blood sugars, 900 blood sugars. These are your type 1s because for some reason the pancreas just stops producing insulin. Usually, again, it's genetic, and sometimes it's because they've had some kind of an illness. So they've gotten the flu or pneumonia or some kind of trauma to the body that puts that body in extra stress, and that stress then sort of causes the pancreas to fail. All right, so that's what you see with your type 1 diabetes patients, usually in kids, very common in 10 to 14-year-olds, but it can happen as at birth. There are babies that have type 1 diabetes. So it's usually seen in younger people as opposed to type 2 diabetes, where the pancreas still is making insulin. In fact, people with type 2 diabetes have high circulating levels of insulin. And that's why that's a problem. Because we know what insulin does is helps your body to store fat. That's what it does. So if you have high levels of insulin, it is harder for your body to get rid of the excess fat. That is why we see so many people with type 2 diabetes that are overweight. It's not necessarily because they're eating so much. It's because what they do eat, instead of being burned by the body, gets stored and turns into fat. So again, in that key and lock and key scenario, there may be a lot of insulin floating around, but that insulin does not work effectively to open up the doors of the cells to let that glucose out of the blood into the cells. And so that glucose starts to just get higher and higher and higher and can cause trouble. Now, this high glucose is called hyperglycemia. hyperglycemia. So hyper is high, glycemia means sugar in the blood. Hyperglycemia, all right? So your doctor will talk to you about hyperglycemia oftentimes when you come to see them. Now, how do you know you have this? Well, a lot of the symptoms that people talk about are these first three: frequent urination at night, excessive thirst, and increased hunger. Now, the increased urination, especially at night, is what you see first. All of a sudden, you just are going to the restroom all the time. That is one of the classic signs of diabetes being out of control. But if it goes on for a long enough period of time, you can get weight loss, you can get weakness, you can get tiredness. It can affect the back of your eyes, so you can get glaucoma, you can get a retinopathy where it affects the vessels and the nerves of your eye. You can damage the vessels of your eye, so there's leakage in the back of your eyes. So a lot of people get blurred vision because of diabetes out of control. We also know that you can get numbness and tingling in your feet, and that's a symptom that people tell me about a lot. That's called neuropathy, where it affects the nerves of your body, and so because of that glucose affecting the nerve fibers and the transmission of the nerve signals across your body, you get numbness and tingling, especially in hands and feet. And then women, a lot of them complain of vaginal infections. In fact, when I was in the pharmacy and I used to fill prescriptions, I would tell my clerks and my cashiers and my technicians that if you have a woman who's constantly coming in buying Monistat or some of the other vaginal products constantly, I want to talk to them, because there's a good chance that they have diabetes and they don't even know it. So constant vaginal infections is because there's sugar down in the vaginal tract and the bacteria grow off of that. And so you get candida infections, right? Venereal infections, very commonly if you have diabetes out of control. And then some people notice that they have cuts or wounds that won't heal. So that's why getting your blood sugar under good control will help you not have those kinds of problems. Now, what makes the blood sugar go up? Well, overeating, gaining weight, having an infection. Remember, I talked about sometimes people with type 1 diabetes come to the hospital because of pneumonia or upper respiratory infection or some other kind of stress on the body. So infection can make your blood sugars go up. Physical or emotional stress, right, can make your blood sugar go up. If you're stressed, and physically or emotionally, it causes other hormones in your body to go up. Chemicals like norepinephrine and epinephrine, all of those cause your blood sugar to go up. There are certain drugs that people are on. Some of the HIV drugs, for instance, cause your blood sugar to go up. Some of the cancer drugs can cause your blood sugar to go up. And not enough medicine. If you're on diabetes medicine and you're not taking enough of the medication, your blood sugar can go up. So what we do at Healing Our Village is making sure that you talk to our pharmacists, and they assure you and they talk to your doctor about getting you on the right combination of medications to control your blood sugar. All right, there are many people out there right now with diabetes who are on oral medications, and their A1Cs are not where they need to be, and we'll talk about that. Their blood sugars are high, and they need to be switched over to insulin therapy. They need to be on injections, and they don't want to go on injections, and so they keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and they won't let the doctor switch them over to insulin. Please don't do that. It is so important that if we can't get your blood sugar under good control with the oral medications, you have to add on at least 1 shot a day of insulin to be able to get your numbers under better control. Now, there's a lot of people that say, well, I don't have high blood glucose, I have low blood sugars. Is that diabetes? No, that is not diabetes. That is something called hypoglycemia. Now, some people just happen to have it. All right, and it may have nothing to do with diabetes, but if you have diabetes and you either don't eat enough food but you took your medicines, or you took too much of your medicines, or you got too much exercise or too much physical and emotional stress, it can cause your blood sugar to drop. we care about that. We care about that a lot. And let me tell you why. If I have to pick between high blood sugars and low blood sugars, I'd rather have a high blood sugar, because low blood sugars are dangerous. If you end up getting into a coma because your blood sugar has dropped out, this can cause damage to your brain and to other parts of your body. So we do not want to ever have a low blood sugar reaction. So now, what are the signs of that? How do I know if my blood sugar is dropping low? Well, a lot of people talk about they start to sweat for no reason. Weakness, hunger. You feel really anxious. You don't know why you're anxious all of a sudden. Sometimes your hands begin to shake. You feel like you're trembling. Your heartbeat can go up. You have what they call palpitations. So you have a fast heartbeat. And you're just irritable. A lot of people can know if they're married or they have a significant other, they know that that person's blood sugar must be getting low, because all of a sudden they start picking fights with each other, okay? That is a sign. Irritability is a sign of low blood sugar. Also, you can't think clearly. Maybe you get a headache. Maybe you get dizziness. Maybe numbness and tingling around your lips. Or if it goes on for too long, you can become disoriented, confused, and go into a coma or even have convulsions. So low blood sugars are dangerous. And so that is why it's critical for you always to know what your blood sugar is. And if you get any of those symptoms I just mentioned, you need to take your blood glucose at the time, which means that everybody out there needs to have a blood glucose monitor available to them so that they can take their blood sugars. Very important. Now, how do you treat a low blood sugar reaction? Okay, well, it's called the rule of 15. So when you feel like you're getting low, you're having some of those symptoms, first thing you do is you check your blood sugar. If it is in fact low, and low would be less than 70 milligrams per deciliter, then you should eat 15 grams of carbohydrate and then wait 15 minutes. That's why it's called the rule of 15. Check your blood sugar again and repeat that until you get your blood sugar above 70. Now, if it happens at night or after exercise, you know that this causes your blood sugars to drop, then you need to keep glucose tablets with you, or some glucose gel with you, or some kind of a fast sugar source with you, so that you can know at the time when you start to get those symptoms and check your sugar and it is low, then you need to treat immediately. And then again, recheck in 15 minutes. So what are the kinds of things you can carry with you? 3 to 5 of the glucose tablets or the glucose gel, or you can drink half a cup of real orange juice, or a third a cup of real grape juice. And when I say real, what I mean is it needs to have sugar in it. So you aren't drinking sugar-free orange juice or sugar-free grape juice. It needs to have sugar, because what we're trying to do is bring the sugar up, right? A tablespoon of honey works. You can get those little honey packets. You can carry those with you. You can drink milk, half a cup to 1 cup of milk. 2 tablespoons of raisins. That's a really easy to carry snack. You can have it in your glove compartment of your car. That works real well. Or you can have 3 to 8 pieces of hard candy, the lifesavers. That works as well. All of those have the 15 grams of glucose that you need to bring your blood sugar up. If you don't have any of those available, you can use table sugar or candy or syrup or jelly. You can drink a regular soda, or you can do jelly beans. But we would really want you to think ahead and have those ones that we know have the right amount of carbohydrate in it, so that we can bring up your blood sugar, because we know that they have 15 grams of sugar or carbohydrate. For those that sometimes have what they call hypoglycemic unawareness, that's very common actually. After you've had diabetes for about 5 to 10 years, some of the folks get into what we call this hypoglycemic unawareness. So they are unaware that their blood sugar is dropping. All those symptoms that I told you about, they don't get them. And so all of a sudden, they end up on the floor, passed out, in a sort of a state where they're not really 100% lucid. And so if that person belongs to your family, if you're one of those people, you need to have a glucagon emergency kit at your home. You get those from the pharmacy. You need a prescription for that. But you need to also know how to administer it, because if someone's blood sugar is super low, then you will be able to know that you need to give them this injection right away, because it's important that, this might actually save their life. So if you don't know about it, ask your pharmacist. Your pharmacist will give you all the information that you need to know. Now, what's the difference between highs and lows? All right, so we know that we're going to monitor. We know that high blood sugars develop slowly over days and hours, whereas hypoglycemia, low blood sugars, can happen super fast. All right, so when you're in doubt, you don't know whether you have high or low, maybe you don't have your meter with you, so you don't know what to do, treat it as if it's low blood sugars, because I just told you that low blood sugars are way more dangerous than high blood sugars. So if you start to get these symptoms and you don't have your meter and you're not sure what to do, take a fast sugar source. And then if that doesn't help and you've done your 15 minutes and take it in again, then there's a good chance that maybe it's hyperglycemia and not hypoglycemia, because you should be feeling better after about 2 treatments of that 15 grams of carbohydrate. I'm going to stop here for you all to take a break. I want you to get up and stretch, go get yourself a glass of water, and we're going to be right back. Okay.
Epigallocatechin gallate, superoxide dismutase, glutathione peroxidase. Now, those are names you probably aren't familiar with, but you should be. Those are antioxidants known to fight free radicals. In fact, did you know that some viruses are actually alcohol resistant? One major study showed that by adding the epigallocatechins from green tea, it killed the virus on contact. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Mark Johnson. I'm here to share with you an exciting new, technologically advanced, patent-pending green tea hand sanitizing wash from Handout Protection. Now, this is not your typical hand gel designed to just smear all over your hand. This is a hand washing sanitizer to cover your entire hand, both the front and back of your hand, in between your fingers and your wrist. This is a non-sticky sanitizing hand wash designed for convenience to take with you in your purse, pocket, or carry in your lunchbox. As Dr. Josh Ridge has stated, what goes on your body goes into your body. That is why we choose only the highest FDA-compliant ingredients, such as 75% isopropyl alcohol and organic green tea brewed with alkaline water. The only way to protect yourself and your family is to always carry a disposable package of Handout with you. This may be the only Handout you ever need.
Hi, this is Dr. Lenore Coleman, President and founder of Healing Our Village. Welcome back to segment 1, Sugar Buster series. It's a 7-part series, and we tell you everything you need to know about the management of your hypertension. We stream here either live or recorded here in Jonesboro, Georgia, in the Atlanta area. We're talking about what is diabetes. That's segment 1, and now we're going to talk about self-monitoring of blood glucose. This is really important. Everyone who has prediabetes or diabetes needs to have a blood glucose monitor. It's really, really important. So I'm going to talk to you about that today and what you need to know to do it effectively. Now, there are certain tests that you can use to test your blood sugar. The direct method is by sticking your finger and getting a blood sample. Of course, you know when you go to the doctor's office, they draw your blood, okay? So that's a venous sample. They're drawing out of your vein. They run it through a lab. The difference between the blood that comes out of your finger and the blood that comes out of your arm is about 10 milligrams per deciliter difference in the test number, right? About 10, but they're relatively close. You can also know if your blood sugar is up because if your blood sugar gets high enough, you'll start to spill ketones into your urine. Now you guys know about that because you've heard of the keto diet, right? Yeah, so that whole diet where you eat nothing but protein, what it does is it causes you to burn fat. And when you burn fat, you end up spilling ketones into your urine. And so people who are on the keto diet actually test their urine for ketones to make sure that the diet is working, to make sure that they're burning fat. Because if you're on a keto diet and you cheat, you have some carbohydrate, you don't stick strictly to the diet, it takes a couple of days for your body to get back into the burn cycle. So you've heard of testing for ketones in your urine because of this diet, but in the world of diabetes, we use the testing of urine for ketones for sick day management. So if you get the flu, you have some kind of infection, and you get sick, your body starts to break down fat as a fuel source. That happens. And so we don't want that to happen. And so we'll have you during those days that you're sick to test your body for ketones, because if you have diabetes and you have ketones in the urine, that is actually a sign that your body can go into something called ketoacidosis. It's actually, you start producing these ketones are acid. And so you start producing these acidic bodies, these ketone bodies, and it can actually make throw off all of your sodium and your potassium and your electrolytes, and you can actually get into a coma. You can get your blood sugars go up so high that instead of burning the glucose, your body burns the fat, and then you can get very, very, very sick. So we always want to monitor for that. So we'll tell you during the days that you have a cold or the flu or whatever, that we want you to test your urine for ketones. Now, this is a cute little graph, has the green zone. We want your blood sugars to stay in this green zone. And that green zone is usually 90 to 130 milligrams per deciliter. So you can see in this little example that the person woke up in the morning, they didn't take their medicine, and so their blood sugar started to rise. And then they got to the office, and right now it's noon, and so there was an office party where they went ahead and had a piece of cake, even though they weren't supposed to have it. And then they took their medicine and decided to take a walk. And so taking the medicine and walking helped their blood sugars to go back down. All right, so this is what it looks like in the body of people who have either type 1 or type 2 diabetes. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to avoid these peaks and valleys. Because when we go into the peaks, when the blood sugar is high and it peaks, that's what causes the damage to the back of the eye, to the nerves, to your kidneys, and to your blood vessels. It's the peaks, it's the high blood sugars. So we don't want you to have high sugars. We want to have your glucose stay constant throughout the day. That's very important. Now, in order for you to figure out what your blood sugar is, you got to monitor your blood sugar. And so they have blood glucose monitors like this one. Now, this is a meter that we actually carry here at Healing Our Village. We're a distributor for this. It's called the ForCare meter. I happen to like this one because it's inexpensive. It's very accurate. And it also is what they call Bluetooth enabled. Just like your phone, right? You know about Bluetooth. So it sends a signal. When you take your blood sugar with this meter, it sends the reading up into the cloud through a Bluetooth signal, and then it comes back down into your cell phone, and also we can see it on our end to help you get your blood sugars under better control. It's called pattern management. So that's what we do here at Healing Our Village. That's how we get people's blood sugars under control. So we help them by using these very new this is a very new technology to be able to monitor their blood sugar. So when you're picking a meter to buy, I want you to make sure it's easy to use, that it doesn't cost that much, and it has a way to store your readings either in the cloud or in the meter. So when your diabetes educator or when your doctor is working with you, they can actually get a printout of your blood sugar readings so that they can start to manage your blood sugar and see what your pattern is, because everybody's pattern is different. How often should you test? Well, if you have type 1 diabetes, you're checking 3 to 4 times per day, before and after meals. If you have type 2 diabetes, you're checking 2 to 3 times a week, before meals and before and after meals. So type 1 diabetics test way more frequently than type 2 diabetes. And if you're sick, we want you to test every, 3 to 4 hours throughout the day, just to make sure that your blood sugars aren't getting too high. And when you're sick, you still need to take your medicines. A lot of people say, well, I'm not eating. so I'm not going to take the medicines. No, you need to take your medicines and you need to eat something, some soup, some Gatorade, some kind of electrolyte solution. You got to get something in because you got to take your medicines. In order to monitor your blood sugar, there's a little lancing device that you can use, right? And this is how you stick your finger. Here are the strips, right, that you're using to be able to do your blood sugar, and then the meter. And you can see the meters are very small. They used to be big, but now they're very small, very accurate, and very efficient. You just can wash your hands. You don't necessarily need to wipe your hands with alcohol, right? So these are your equipment, so you have it all here ready to go. So you wash your hands with warm water. You sort of shake your arm down, kind of dangle your arm so you can get the blood sort of circulating down into your arm. You get the lancet and you pick which finger you're going to use. Usually you're testing the sides of your finger, right? So you're not testing the center. You don't test there. You test the sides. So you just get the lancing device. You'll hit the button, and then it's just a very small little prick. It doesn't hurt. And then you press your finger and just hold the pressure until you get a little tiny drop of blood. All right? The strips are in a vacuum sealed container, so this keeps it's airtight. You get your strip out and you're going to put it in the meter, so you're already ready to go. As soon as you put the strip in the meter turns on. So again, you'll get your lancing device, you'll prick your finger, you'll get the blood, you'll put the strip. You see how I'm bringing the strip to the blood? It pulls up into the strip and it immediately starts to count. It takes 5 seconds and then you'll see a blood glucose number in the window of the meter. And that's what your blood sugar is. We want your blood sugar to be in the morning when you first get up, before you've had anything, even your coffee, anything to eat or drink. Your blood sugar needs to be between 90 and 130. That's your number. That's your number, 90 and 130. If you get your number between 90 and 130 every day, then we know that your blood glucose control is good. If you're up in the high 180, 200, 250s, that means your blood sugar is not in good control. All right? So testing is critical. Again, if you're type 1, you're testing a couple times a day, 2 or 3 times a day. If you're type 2, once you get under good control, you can maybe test 3 or 4 times a week. But initially, we'll want you to test at least twice a day, in the morning when you first get up, and then after either your breakfast or your lunch one day or your dinner one day. So again, we can see what your pattern is and be able to get your blood sugar under better control. So here are our goals. 90 to 130, that's your fasting. That's first thing in the morning. That's what fasting means. It means you haven't had anything to eat or drink for 8 hours. And then after the meal, after your breakfast, after your lunch, after your dinner, 2 hours after that, it needs to be less than 180. I like it to be less than 160 if we can get you that close. But that's what our numbers need to be. Tips for monitoring: always get a meter that records your results. Bring your meter with you to the doctor's office so that they can see what your numbers are. They can actually download your meter. We want to know your pattern, because what you eat, what kinds of food you eat, how often you eat, how much you eat affects your blood sugar. So we'll talk to you about your exercise when you exercise. We'd like you to exercise in the evening as opposed to the morning, all right? Because we're trying to burn those calories, right? So I know a lot of you are morning people. You get up and you get that first bit of exercise in. But if you ask me when I would prefer you to exercise, is after you get home from work and you've been eating a couple of meals a day. That's the better time to exercise. And then when you work with our educators, I'm looking for your pattern. We're going to talk to you about, so what was your blood sugar yesterday? Why it was 200. So what did you eat for breakfast? What did you eat for lunch? We're going to find out what kinds of foods cause that blood sugar to be higher than 90 to 130. Because that's the range we're trying to keep you in. And we'd love to keep you in that range, at least less than 160 all day long. This is just a picture of what the meters look like in terms of the different apps that are available on the phone. So it actually tells you and shows you what your blood sugars need to look like. We know that there are certain factors that affect your blood sugar. We talked about exercise, decreases your blood sugar, so that's good. We talked about medications that can increase or decrease your blood sugar. The time of the day that you test, that's why we want you to usually do it in the morning fasting and then 1 hour after your meals so we can see exactly what the meals are doing to your blood sugar. You need to make sure that you look at the bottle and look for the expiration date that's on the bottle because you don't want to ever use outdated strips because they're not going to give you an accurate blood sugar. Now there's a test called hemoglobin A1C, or maybe they'll just call it A1C. This is a test that shows you your average blood sugar over a 3 to 4 month period of time. We ask you to get this test done at least twice a year. Okay, we'd like you to do it every 3 months, but at least twice a year. And the goal for your A1C, according to the American Diabetes Association, should be less than 7%. And if you look at the goals that the Association of Clinical Endocrinologists, they want you at 6.5%. They want you even lower than 7%. Now, if you're elderly, if you have heart disease, then we don't want you to be so tight, so low. So we're going to have you stay around 7.5%. When I talk to patients about their blood sugars and their A1Cs, let's just talk about, can we get less than 8%? Let's just get less than 8. Let's just get less than 8%. All right, so if you want to know a number, when you talk to your doctor about your A1C, you need to ask your doctor, what was my A1C the last time I was here, especially if they drew blood. They were supposed to do an A1C test. The reason why I'm saying that is that 40% and sometimes more of patients with diabetes are not getting A1C tests done. You got to get your A1C done because that tells me how good your blood glucose is under control. We want you under good control, and I can't do that unless I know what your A1C number is. This number that I'm getting daily on your meter doesn't give me a good idea of what your control is over the long haul. Also, this test, this blood glucose test in the meter, you can cheat it. All right, a lot of patients, when we didn't have A1Cs, used to just start fasting the week before their appointment, and then they got their blood sugar checked at the appointment date, and it would be low than it usually is. Okay, so you can't cheat the A1C because it's an average of all your highs and all your lows. So you can't cheat it. It's not affected by what you eat today or tomorrow. All right, so it's very important that we get your A1C less than 8. Because if we can get it less than 8%, you decrease your risk of eye disease, heart disease, kidney disease, nerve disease. We know that. The data is clear. So this is why our targets are to get you as close to 7% or even less than 7% as possible. So the way this A1C works is it's measuring the amount of glucose in the blood over a 3 to 4 month period of time. We usually do it every 3 months because this hemoglobin A1C is actually in your hemoglobin molecule that's in your blood, right? So you've heard of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is what carries the oxygen to your body, all right? So this hemoglobin also has this A1C component that happens to be attracted to glucose. So in this little cartoon, you can see that your blood cells are going through your body and the little white dots are glucose. And if you have a whole lot of glucose, a whole bunch of white dots in your blood, then you can see that more of those white dots attach to the A1C component of your blood cell. And so when we test for that, we can tell the average of your blood glucose over that 3 to 4 month period of time, because red blood cells die after 4 months, right? Okay, so this is a good test to give me your averages over that 3 to 4 month period of time. And you can't cheat it, all right? Because a lot of times, I remember in the good old days, we'd have people use the blood glucose monitors and write down their numbers in a log book. And I could always tell when they had faked the numbers because all the pen would be the same ink pen. Okay, that's how and the book would be pristine, it'd be clean, it wouldn't have any blood smudges on it, all right? I knew that that was something that they did the day before they came to see me and that they were cheating and not telling me their blood glucose. Now, why do I care about this A1C? Because there's data and there have been scientific studies which show me that if I can stay in that good range between 7 and 8, right? And if I can even get to the excellent range where I'm down here in the green, so 6.3, those numbers. What that's going to tell me is that if my blood glucose my A1C number is 6.0, then that means my average blood sugar is 115 milligrams per deciliter. So you're right in that range of 90 to 130, right? I said I needed you to be between 90 and 130. So if your A1C comes in at 6, this is a calculation, this is an equation that they do. So I know that if you're at 6 with hemoglobin E 6%, A1C, that your blood sugar is 115 milligrams per deciliter, average. So some of you out there have an A1C of 9%. All right? Well, let me show you what that means. That means your average blood sugar, your highs and your lows, when you add them all up, are 215 milligrams per deciliter. That's high. A greater than 8 is when you start doing that damage to your eyes, your kidneys, your nerves, your heart. So that is why this A1C is critical for you to know and for us to work together to get that number to less than 8%, as close to 7% as possible. All right, so now I have covered everything you need to know, at least about what diabetes is, what the symptoms are, what high blood sugar means, what low blood sugar means, how important it is to monitor your blood sugar. If you have any questions, we're here for you. We have an 800 number. It doesn't even cost you any money to call us. That's 800-788-0941. We have a website, HOVhealth.com. There's all sorts of good information up there. We have videos up there. We have materials that you can read that are available. Also, if you want to support our efforts to help and provide these health fairs to the seniors that we're doing and all of the things that we're doing in the community, we need you to donate to Total Lifestyle Change. That's my nonprofit. And so our website is tlc-global.org. For those who want to be part of our village, have us as part of your team, to get your blood sugar and blood pressure under control, we have something called Village Club. It's $72 a year, $6 a month, less than a Starbucks. All right? And just by paying that to us on a monthly basis, you have access to my pharmacist, to my doctors, to my health educators. And we would love you to become part of our Village Club. So also that's available on the website, so you can be able to join right there, and we'll immediately call you and get you and your family hooked up with our program. So I thank you so much for today, and I want to have you all remember that Healing Our Village is here for you, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Hello, I'm Dr. Lenore Coleman, President and founder of Healing Our Village. Did you know 88 million people in the United States have prediabetes, and that number keeps growing? Did you know that more than 2 in 3 adults in the United States are either overweight or obese? Healing Our Village is excited to introduce Step Up 90, weight loss and diabetes prevention program, all in one. Finally, there is a guided mobile app that will help you lose 5 to 7% of your body weight and help you get your 150 minutes of exercise in every week. All of this is available on your cell phone, notepad, or computer. To install Step Up 90, all you have to do is go to www.stepup90 from your phone or computer and hit the install button. Once the icon is added to your home screen, you can create a unique login and password, or use your Facebook or Google login credentials. Do you have prediabetes? Does diabetes run in your family? Well, once you log in to Step Up 90, you can take the diabetes risk test. If you score more than 5, you may be at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Step Up 90 features the CDC-approved Prevent T2 program, along with their food log, fitness log, and action plan. All materials can be printed or downloaded for easy use. Our monthly calendar provides our virtual class schedule with a reminder 30 minutes before the class to help you remember. Are you looking for easy to understand lifestyle videos, healthy recipes, exercise classes, nutritional support groups, or a cooking demonstration? All of this is available with our premium package. The most unique feature of Step Up 90 is your ability to chat with your lifestyle coach, a clinical pharmacist, or a registered dietitian. These experts will have weekly office hours. They are there to help you achieve your lifestyle goals and manage your medications. Sign up today for Step Up 90. We have our basic package starting at $5.99, featuring our weekly Zoom classes, and our premium package at $19.99. Step Up 90, it is time for you to step up.